So good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Geun in Seoul. Before we get started, let's first get a quick check of today's highlights. Mired in a prolonged emissions scandal, Volkswagen's business here in Korea seems to be screeching to a halt, with sales last month sliding by a whopping 85%. The so-called one-shot law is set to take effect this month, and we take a look at how it's expected to lend a helping hand to businesses struggling to stay afloat. These stories and more coming right up. The brakes may be slammed on Korea's economic recovery momentum. That's an assessment put forward by Korea Development Institute in its economic trends report for this month. It says despite a modest improvement in domestic demand, the effects are being canceled out by slowing exports and a slump in production. While retail sales went up almost 9% in June, and output in the service sector was up 5.4%, it was largely attributed to a base effect from last year when consumption plunged during the height of a MERS outbreak. On top of that, growth in industrial output weakened in June as exports continue to slide alongside a decline in facilities investment. The institute said the ongoing corporate restructuring will drag down recovery in the short term, and the expiration of a cut in consumption taxes will also dim the prospects in spending. Sales of German auto giant Volkswagen saw a massive loss in the Korean market last month, hit by the effects of a protracted scandal over certification documents and a tax cut program that had helped lift overall demand for cars. Prospects have dimmed further as customers are now furious over a recent sales suspension. Our Lee Min-young has this report.
Sales of Volkswagen cars in Korea nosedive in the month of July, clobbered by the automaker's emissions and noise test scandal, as well as the expiration of a consumption tax cut program in the previous month. Data released by Korea Automobile Importers and Distributors Association on Thursday shows that only 425 Volkswagen cars were sold in July, a near 86% drop from the same month last year, when 3,000 units were sold. It's also just shy of a 77% decline from the month of June. Sales figures for the German automaker's other luxury car brands, Audi and Bentley, also took a tumble, with Audi posting a drop of 42.5% on year, while Bentley's sales sunk by almost 62%. Not only that, angry consumers are looking to take legal action after Seoul's Environment Ministry suspended sales and revoked the certification of over 80 submodels sold by Audi Volkswagen Korea earlier in the week. Complaints have been growing among customers who bought the vehicles said to have come with fake emissions and noise test documents. And a class action lawsuit looking for refunds and compensation is now being put into motion. Some consumers have even filed a petition with the government, asking for it to order product exchanges, arguing that the sales contract with the German auto car maker should be considered fraudulent. Lee Min-young, Business Daily.
Meanwhile, Korea's Samsung Electronics could be looking at its biggest acquisition yet outside of the U.S. and an Italian auto parts maker. According to Bloomberg, the Korean tech giant is in advanced talks with Fiat Chrysler for its supplier Magneti Marelli, a 97-year-old company with a reach of 19 countries. The report said Samsung was especially eyeing the company's telematics, lighting, and in-car entertainment systems, and that a deal which could be worth more than $3 billion could close this year. On the back of the news, shares of Fiat Chrysler bounced up nearly 9% on the New York Stock Exchange on Wednesday. A purchase could position Samsung's Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong to pursue a new growth engine in next-generation car parts, just as his father before him had made a fortune selling smartphone components to his rivals. And staying in the auto industry, overnight on Wall Street, Tesla reported disappointing second quarter earnings, missing estimates for both earnings and revenue. The electric car maker did report a boost in production capacity, but it has yet to break away from a number of problems weighing it down. Our Lee Jung takes a closer look.
It's been about 10 years since Tesla caught the attention of car enthusiasts around the world after launching its first fully electric sports car, the Tesla Roadster. Much has changed since then, and the American automotive company had the attention of the world yet again when it unveiled an update to its secret master plan. In his Master Plan Part 2, CEO Elon Musk sketched out a multi-year four-pronged strategy. It includes expanding its electric vehicle product line to cars, buses, and trucks, and developing Tesla's autopilot technology so that it's 10 times safer than a human driver. The blueprint also describes a ride-sharing program that would enable the car to make money for the owner. Essentially, while an owner is at work or on vacation, the vehicle would generate income by driving around others. While Musk's clean energy empire is viewed as visionary, investors seemed unimpressed, sending Tesla stocks down over 3% after the announcement. One point of contention was Tesla's all-stock offer to take over the solar panel installation company SolarCity, worth $2.8 billion. Shareholders questioned the profitability of the deal, given that SolarCity has been burning hundreds of millions of dollars for many quarters. Musk's decision to release a rudimentary self-driving car also attracted widespread criticism following the death of a driver operating Tesla's autopilot system. Experts say whether Tesla can regain market confidence largely depends on how its upcoming Model 3 will perform once out on the market in late 2017. Priced at $35,000, the eco-friendly sedan has racked up nearly 400,000 pre-orders. Young, Business Daily.
Just this week, the cabinet approved specific measures of implementation for the so-called Oneshot Act, designed to bolster corporate activities through various structural and regulatory reforms. Now, with the new law set to take effect starting August 13th, we take a look at how it's expected to help companies in trouble.
The Corporate Vitality Enhancement Act, also dubbed the One-Shot Law, aims to streamline the process for companies looking to make investments or restructure their businesses. By reducing legal procedures for mergers and acquisitions and providing tax cuts when companies voluntarily sell off or buy businesses, the government hopes the new law will help strengthen industrial competitiveness and revitalize the slumbering domestic economy. The law is especially designed to help major industries such as steel and shipbuilding, which have been suffering from oversupply in the global market. But there are also growing calls on the government to ensure that the law is not used as a tool to strengthen family ownership over conglomerates through questionable cross-shareholding. So amid lingering economic uncertainties, can the new law provide a shot in the arm for Korea's corporate sector and the economy as a whole?
And to tell us more about this, Professor Jung from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. So good to see you, Professor.
Happy to be here.
I know we mentioned it briefly in the report, but what changes to the current regulations does this new one-shot law bring? And also, I heard it's valid just for 3 years.
Yeah, it's a controversial law, so I think this is sort of a starting step, see if it works. That's not unusual. But the actual companies which can take advantage of this act, actually, there isn't that many.
Okay.
It's designed for large companies, so keeping chaebol conglomerate subsidiaries in mind, and then a committee of private and government officials will have to agree that this firm is eligible for these benefits. And in order to be eligible, they have to meet 3 criteria.
Okay.
The first criteria is operating income to sales. Their short-term has to fall from their long-term. And then the second criteria, they have to satisfy 2 out of 5 sub-criteria dealing with capacity utilization, inventory, fall in employment compared to other similar companies, changes in prices and costs, and industry indicators. And then the third criteria is that there will be inadequate demand. So it's easier than before, but still, I don't think it's going to be that easy. But once you're eligible, then you can get financial assistance, including low-interest loans, credit guarantees, tax breaks, R&D support, and support for workers who may be displaced. So it's better than having nothing, but it probably will be a lot harder to take advantage of this act benefits than a lot of people count on. SMEs, they have separate laws to deal with them.
Okay.
So this is basically for the larger companies.
Now, let's go in detail a little bit. How exactly is this new law expected to support struggling businesses and their restructuring efforts?
Okay, well, traditionally, if you take the case of Yahoo in the United States, it's not doing very well.
Right.
So they've sold a substantial portion of that company to Verizon just a few weeks ago.
Right.
Now, for Korea, selling off portions of the company like that hasn't been usual. There's question over whether it's structural, whether it's regulatory, or whether it's cultural, but there hasn't been a lot of mergers and acquisitions in Korea, and when a company gets into trouble, then it continues to go into trouble until they nearly go out of business. So what they're hoping is that by letting new owners take the company, hopefully they can have companies turn around, and they're giving assistance to make the mergers and acquisitions easier so that they could have more confident new managers take care of the company. Now, one of the impetus behind this law was earlier this year, Samsung, Hanwha, and Lotte. They bought and sold their subsidiaries to get better core competence and rearrange the subsidiaries so that they could take care of their particular advantages. This was sort of designed to help them do that, but the problem is with the Samsung, Lotte, and Hanwha case that we mentioned earlier, they're probably not going to be eligible because they do not suffer from, say, oversupply or bad situation or lower profits. It's half a loaf, but it's better than none.
Now, I know this law actually benchmarks Japan's business revitalization law established back in 1999. Now, at this point, we're wondering, has Japan seen much success since then?
Okay, well, in Japan's case, they seem to be fairly successful.
Okay.
They have 684 firms which have been restructured and merged. But one of the differences between the Japanese law and the Korean version is that Japanese law also includes SMEs. And 48% of the firms which took advantage of the Japanese Act were actually small and medium-sized enterprises.
Oh, okay.
And then they took a look at 488 firms in 2003 and 2013, and 170 of them created new jobs, and that created about 70,000 new jobs. And they had improvements in sales and returns on equity. So it was fairly successful for them, but you have to keep in mind that the Japanese law is slightly different than the Korean law.
Right. Now, some worry, though, that companies are going to be quite hesitant in applying for this one-shot program because they don't want to be coined the troubled companies that are in need of restructuring. So what are your thoughts on this, and what are some other concerns surrounding this new law?
Okay, well, the industries that people expect to take advantage of this law was steel, shipbuilding, and maritime shipping. Now, maritime shipping and shipbuilding, I'm not sure if there's any buyers for them at the present because they're very too far gone.
Right.
So unless the government or the government-backed banks forgives a lot of loans, I'm not sure if they can find a buyer for them. Now, the steel makers, some of them are worried about just the fact that you just talked about, which is that they might be coined as bad firms when they really feel that they can revitalize themselves. So that is a problem that has to be dealt with. But overall, I think, as I mentioned before, half a loaf is better than none. It's better to have these tools than not, but I think they can be very much expanded. By the time they satisfy these criteria that we've talked about, the firm may be too far gone. So if you take a look at the case of the United States or Europe, they have M&As all the time.
Right.
Even when the company is not in serious trouble, but their productivity is falling, they do M&As to try to restructure. Even the Japanese firms, they don't limit this law to companies which are undergoing problems. They open it to every firm, including SMEs.
Okay, well, there are also questions over whether this downsizing of local businesses will actually help, considering that problems from excess capacity and oversupply are global problems that won't really be taken care of by just restructuring domestically.
Right, but still, what you're hoping is that by restructuring domestically and improving productivity, you're improving the possibility of that firm staying alive in the global market. So you see other companies, especially in the Western economies, advanced economies, merging and acquisitioning all the time. And I think we have to get a lot used to that.
Okay.
What we want to do is, if the management is not doing a good job, we want to get new management in there to try to fix the companies, or we want to have sort of a triage. We want to save the portions of the company that can be saved. Now, obviously, if you're not part of the company that can be saved, that'll create a lot of problems. That's why we have some of these labor assistance to labor. But still, unless we do restructuring such as that, we're not going to improve our productivity and we're not going to improve our growth.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and goodbye.